Now, I want to ask you about Angola. Do you know what Angola and Brazil have in common? Portuguese is spoken. This is interesting. You went to Angola.
We went to
And you were
Angola.
there how long?
I was there for about 3.5 years as a short-term worker, single.
Short term.
And then, then Anita and I, after our marriage, we returned to Angola and were there for about 4 years.
And that was a tumultuous time.
This was a very tumultuous time, but it was, I think, the time that had the most influence on my life.
Really? Say more about that.
It was a time when England and Belgium and most of the other European nations were giving freedom to their colonies. And Portugal said that they would never. They'd been there for 500 years, they're going to stay another 500 years. So finally, in 1961, a revolt for independence began. It happened that most of the leaders of in the different groups, the movements, had been trained in our various Protestant schools. Not were all active Protestants, but that was the only place they could get an education. The government didn't have schools for the smaller children out in the villages. And so the government, Portuguese government, put the blame for the revolt on the subversive missionaries that had brought this idea of independence into the country, and to all of the ministers that we had trained in our schools. These were going to be ministers in the new government. And there was the Portuguese throughout the country organized groups that began to persecute the Protestant Christians. It was a time when we as missionaries, always wondered, well, we've been working here all these years, how are these people really going to respond to the persecution? Is this a time that would be much easier to just hide out and not proclaim yourself to be a Protestant? But it was just, Anita and I we just couldn't imagine the dedication, the loyalty that people would show. One week they had a demonstration outside of our Methodist church and school and the homes where some of our workers lived. And they stoned everything, shots were fired, and they broke every window in the church and in the administration building. And then the next Sunday, we might wonder what would happen. And long before the church service was even begun, the church was full. They came with their Bibles in their hands. The young people were proudly wearing their Methodist Maltese cross, the same that we have here. And even some were arrested as they were coming to church. And it was just to see their dedication in the face of all this persecution. It made us wonder who were the missionaries that they were really teaching us the gospel.
And you suffered personally during this time.
Yes, well, many of the missionaries were expelled. Many of our pastors were put in prison and were killed there or suffered terribly. Others were able to flee into the forest and got over into the Congo. The pastor who had baptized our first daughter had been moved to a little town further away. And Sunday morning, as he was preaching, this group surrounded the church and pulled him out to the front. And we, as I said, we used the word minister for our pastors. And they accused him of, think you're going to be a minister in this new government, and we'll show you. And he was beaten to death. Shortly after that, I was put in prison. And his widow was able to come to the capital city, to Luanda, where we were. And the first thing she did was go to talk with Anita and offer her comfort, because we were in prison. And it says, Americans, we never thought we would be killed, because that would have ruined the Portuguese line that they were treating everybody so well and nothing was going on bad, But there she came to offer comfort to, and asked her to pray for her and for other Angolans that were suffering, that they would be able to have forgiveness and love in their hearts for these people that had done such terrible things to them.
Wow. How long were you in prison?
We were there three months.
3 months.
And then expelled from the country.
And so why didn't you just say, I'm going home to Charleston?
Well, I did.
Didn't stay.
Didn't stay.
You went to Rio after that.
Yeah, well, then we had to decide what we would be home missionary or to go some other place in Africa. And this was when the call came that they were needing a social worker in Africa at the People's Intervention Institute, where I had already said someday I'd like to work there. So,
you went there in 1962.
Yeah.
And you're still there.
Yeah,
not at the moment, but yes.
We decided to retire there.
Yes. Tell us how have you seen God there?
Well, we certainly saw God at work in the lives of these Angolans who were such dedicated. We've seen God in the lives of people that we serve. And God at work is the different steps that we had to take and helping us in decision making.
You ever been tempted to just give it up and not be a missionary anymore?
No. I think because of these heroes. One of the heroes was Reverend Tucker, who went to Brazil in 1886, and he was the founder of the Institute. And reading his autobiography was a religious experience. He almost died of yellow fever when he first went there, and they already had made his coffin. He was longer than most of the people. They'd already made a special coffin for him, and they were waiting for him to die during the night. And he was very agitated all during the night, and the other people there said he kept saying, "Not yet, not yet, not yet." And when the next morning when he came to, they said, "Well, why were you saying not yet, not yet?" He said, "I felt God's voice telling me this wasn't the end. He still had something for me to do." And he died at the age of 99.